Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror and sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today, I will be interviewing one of the great 80s movie character actors of all time. You know his face, you probably don't know his name, and when you hear his name, you're probably surprised by it. Googy Gress. Googy Gress, the star of such classics as The Flamingo Kid, Maxie, the 1986 NBC Movie of the Week remake of Babes in Toyland, alongside another guest of mine, Jill Sholin. He was also in Kingpin, Apollo 13, and many others. And I'm having him on the show today to talk about all those roles. And I can't wait. Been a fan of his for a long time. Also, I'd like to say today is the 50th anniversary of the Rolling Stones at Altamont. And last night I was listening to Mark Maron talking to the Rolling Stones photographer Ethan Russell, and they went heavily into depth about the whole Altamont experience, and it was just very compelling and really interesting to listen to. So I recommend everybody go back and listen to it on WTF with Mark Maron. So yeah, here is my interview with Googy Gress. Okay. So Googy, it's such an honor. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
My pleasure. Thank you for asking.
Yes. So going back in time, did you gravitate toward acting early on?
I did. At this very time of year, right now, when I was in first grade, I played Santa Claus in my elementary school's big Christmas pageant, and I have wanted to be an actor ever since. It's a blessing and a curse. It's all I've ever wanted to do. And luckily enough, it's all I've ever really done. So, But there was a point a few years ago where I thought to myself, how is it that a 5-year-old boy is still telling a 55-year-old man what to do? And that's kind of how I felt about it. But, it's all I've ever wanted to do. I've been very lucky.
Oh, that's great. You're originally from New York?
No, I was born in New York, but I really grew up in Connecticut.
Okay.
When I was 2, my parents moved out. We moved out to the suburbs to a town called Stamford, Connecticut. And then I was 8. We moved the next town over to a town called New Canaan, Connecticut.
Nice.
I graduated from high school there. And then I came out here to Southern California. I went to USC, and I was in school there for 4 years.
Right.
And I graduated, and I moved back to New York City, and I lived there for about 5 or 6 years. Then I came out to LA for a couple of years, and I moved back to New York for a year. And then right at the very beginning of 1989, I moved back to LA, and I've been here ever since.
Nice, nice. And how did you get a name like Googy?
From my father, when I was an itty-bitty, brand-new baby, he used to call me his goo-goo baby because I was goo-goo, I guess. I don't know exactly.
Yeah.
But he called me his goo-goo baby, and that became Googy. And then I always tell everybody I'm from Connecticut. It's a state law. You have to have a silly nickname. So that was it.
Wow, state law. Yeah, I saw that your real name is Francis. That's actually my dad's middle name.
Well, it was my father's name, and it's my oldest son's name as well. I am Francis Gress Jr., and my son is Francis Gress III, who my dad both went by Frank. And I remember thinking not too long ago that I've spent my entire life listening and being told what to do by somebody named Frank.
Yeah.
And it's true.
So who did you study acting under?
Well, great question, and I'm so thrilled to answer it. The big acting teacher for my life was a man named Warren Robertson.
Mm-hmm.
And by just the most amazing act of coincidence, Warren's grandson and my son Frank have become the best of friends. And so I got to meet Warren's daughter, whom I did not ever know, but I got to meet her a few years ago. And then, at this point I should say several years ago, and then a few years ago, Warren actually moved nearby to where we lived. I had lived for about 25 years in Santa Monica.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, but a few years ago we moved out to Newberry Park, California, which is part of Thousand Oaks, really,
Right.
in Ventura County. And living nearby was Warren's grandson and his daughter, Warren's daughter. And so Warren, a few years ago, moved nearby as well, down to Camarillo, California. And so I've been able to, reinvigorate our friendship. And I just adore the guy. I learned so much from him. I had gone to USC and gotten a BFA degree, but when I went to New York, I really didn't know what the hell I was doing until I met Warren, and that's where I feel like I really learned how to do what I do. And then I had another wonderful teacher many years after that, when I was kind of in one of the first little low spots of my career. I went back to acting class and studied with a man named Harry Master George, which is a weird spelling, Mastro George, George, Harry Master George. And Harry as well was a wonderful teacher, and I learned a lot from him. So those two, but Warren is the guy that really changed the path of my thinking about acting and, gave me genuine possibility as a young guy.
Oh, that's great. In show business, that kind of friendship is so rare. That's great that you have that.
Yeah. Warren just had his 88th birthday.
88,
and
wow.
I was invited to that. And, there were a few of his old students, like I had been. And one of whom was Dolph Lundgren.
Oh, yeah.
I had never met. He wanted to come and pay his respects to this guy because it was Warren who really gave Dolph his opportunities and the skills that he needed as well. Warren had a lot of great students, Andy McDowell and Viggo Mortensen and Jessica Lange, and, just a lot of really good actors went to his school in New York.
Oh, the best of the best, yeah. One of your earliest movies was The Flamingo Kid.
Yes, it was. And I've done two movies that really had a greater impact on my life than just doing the movie. And that was the first of them. Because from that movie, I made friends that I've maintained to this day. Brian McNamara, Matt Dillon, Fisher Stevens, Marissa Tomei. There's another young woman in there named Jillian Neal.
Yeah.
Matt Stanton was a guy named Stephen Langan. Leon Robinson. I mean, these are people that I see to this day. I've remained friends with ever since. So that's an extraordinary thing. And then the other movie was Apollo 13.
Right.
I have had lunch with the same 5 guys from Apollo 13 every Thursday since we made that movie.
Wow.
Not one Thursday a month, not every Thursday, except for Thanksgiving, Christmas, if it's on a Thursday, the 4th of July. That's about it. Otherwise, we have lunch.
Yeah.
And that's an extraordinary thing. You know, there were a bunch of us that played mission control guys in that movie, and we just have grown old together at this point. And, you know, it's really been a great gift.
Yeah. I mean, Gary Marshall, I mean, he was such a genius.
Gary Marshall was a great guy. Could not have been nicer. What is she? I guess she's his niece. Is Tracy Reiner.
I've interviewed Tracy, yeah.
Yeah. Tracy and I have remained friendly as well. And, you know, Gary and I even acted together a couple of times. And Gary hired me. Wait, did Gary do Ed TV? I can't remember.
Ron Howard directed it.
Oh, Ron did. Sorry. But I did a scene with Gary in Ed TV. And I did a small film, a short film, that was directed by a guy named Ajay Segal. That was really good. And Gary and I were both in that film, too, as actors.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, very dear, sweet, good guy.
And then you did a movie in my hometown, a very underrated gem called Maxie.
Amen. I love that movie. And that guy that I mentioned, Malcolm Daynard.
Yeah.
I told you I've been friends with Matt Dillon forever. Well, Matt and I used to live together in New York.
Mm-hmm.
He and I rented out a big loft, and he had his part of it, which was much bigger than my part, to be sure. But it was, I think, his first real apartment, leaving out of his parents' house. And forgive me, I have a cough, and I'm trying to get rid of it. But,
it's a recurring theme on this show.
Matt got a job making a movie in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And he got an extra plane ticket, a couple extra plane tickets, and he gave me one. So I was flying to Australia, and my agent said, "You're stopping over in LA on your way to Australia." I said, "Yeah." They're like, "Well, on that day, could you go to an audition?" I said, "Sure." So I went to this audition for Maxie.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in the room with the casting women, and they're going, "So you're leaving for Australia tonight?" Yeah, I'm going to be there for a couple weeks. "Well, do you think you could go to the director's house this afternoon?" "Yeah, sure." So I went up there and I auditioned for the movie. And then I left. And I went, I hung out with Matt in Australia, and then he got a job shooting a TV commercial in Japan. It's like that Bill Murray movie. So I got to go to Japan. And then he was starting another movie that he shot with Gene Hackman in Paris. So I got to go to Paris. So now I've been gone for, I don't know, 3-4 weeks, something like that. And I got a phone call from my dad, who had hired a detective to find out where Matt Dillon was, because I had gotten this part in this movie, Maxie, and I needed to fly to San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad hired some, I don't know. I mean, this was before cell phones and TMZ or whatever, you know. There was no way to find anybody. This was 1984 or whatever.
Yeah.
And I called my dad, and I got on a plane the next day, and I flew to San Francisco, and I had to meet the director again, and then I had to meet Glenn Close. And she had grown up in Connecticut, towns away from where I grew up. So we kind of had that in common, I guess, and we talked, and then I went back to my hotel room and waited. And later that day, they said, "Okay, you're it. You come to work tomorrow." And that was it. And then, and this is what I was going to get to, I found out that I had replaced my buddy, Malcolm Daynard. So, for whatever reason, that hadn't quite worked out. And so there I was a month later, and I got that job. And it was very galvanizing for me. You know, I was still very young and still very nervous sometimes. And, you know, I was intimidated. I mean, it was Glenn Close, man. I'd seen her on Broadway in Barno. She was it. She had been in The Big Chill already. She was a great big movie star, and it was really intimidating, like I said. But there was an older character actor in there, the guy that played the older priest.
Bernard Hughes.
A guy named Bernard Hughes, exactly. And he was the exact opposite, very unintimidating. He was a character actor who had been around forever and ever and ever, and just showed up, did his job, and went home. And, you know, that was quite a good lesson for me to learn. And, you know, that director, Paul Aaron, was a very dear and sweet guy. And that movie was, you know, I've done a bunch of movies that have not done nearly as well as I thought they would have or should have. And that was the first of them. He got a review in the LA Times. The big critic back then was a guy named Charles Champlin. And he did a review of that movie that said, people always talk about how they don't make movies like they used to, that are fun and engaging and you can bring the whole family and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And now they've made one and nobody's going to see it. And that was exactly the case, man.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was this very sweet movie and it just didn't do well at the box office. And I felt bad because it was really charming.
Yeah, it's a great movie. We used to watch it on HBO like every other day when I was a kid. My family loved it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good movie.
It's a very good movie. So how did Babes in Toyland come to you?
The casting director was a guy named Jose Villaverde.
Mm-hmm.
And he was truly this very charming, elegant man who didn't at all make it feel like you were auditioning. It was like going to hang out with your incredibly eccentric uncle. And, you know, I would say for that time, all the usual suspects were there. There was a guy named Daniel Roebuck. You know who he is?
Oh, yeah. He played Jay Leno in The Late Shift.
Yes, he did. Dan was there, and Malcolm was there, and I don't know, but guys that, again, I would compete against all of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I just did a good audition. And I cannot sing. Like, one of the biggest laughs I ever got in my entire life was the night that my family and I watched Babes in Toyland when it was on TV.
Yeah.
And my family knows the truth. I cannot sing a note. I really a bad singer. And so when we start singing in that movie, and they had used this very wonderful guy who was a young opera singer. We shot that movie in Munich, Germany. And he was a young American studying opera in Munich. And he dubbed my singing. And when I opened my mouth to sing the song to Drew Barrymore, none of them could stop laughing because they knew the truth of, that wasn't me.
Yeah.
But how did I get that job? I don't know. I was young and charming and easy. And, I truly feel like in a lot of ways I was the right guy for that job. The job was to play Drew Barrymore's best friend, basically.
Yeah.
And be this kind of non-threatening, good guy that cared about her.
Yeah.
That's who I am. I'm a good guy.
Yeah, I can tell you are.
Especially like kids. And, I was only, 26, maybe 28. I don't know.
Yeah.
I do remember, I had my birthday there, whatever birthday it was. And Pat Morita gave me a beautiful gift that I had for many years.
Oh.
Music box that spun around and then opened up. It was kind of like a carousel, and it held cigarettes. I used to smoke cigarettes then.
Mm-hmm.
And so it would spin around and play a little song, and then open up, and there you could keep cigarettes there. Anyway, I've lost my thread. Forgive me.
It's okay.
I love
I'll ask.
that movie.
Mm-hmm.
I adored getting to know Pat. I thought the world of Drew. Jill and Keanu were awesome. It was a great job. It was in Munich. The director was a really sweet old British guy.
Mm-hmm.
Cameraman, likewise, was this great old Cockney guy who taught me a lot of Cockney slang.
Were you embarrassed at all by the outfit you had to wear?
No, not in the least. On the contrary, I still have that hat from that movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I still have that red scarf kind of bow tie thing. And no, not at all. I was Georgie Porgy. Much more difficult for me was the fact that for the scenes where I was in Toyland, my hair was completely dyed blonde.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of weird. And going back to your pal Jill Sholin there for a minute,
mm-hmm.
the very first time I ever noticed that my hair was thinning, she noticed it with me. She saw me seeing, oh my God, what's that? And it was because they kept dyeing my hair, and I don't know, but it was the first time I was starting to develop a little bit of a bald spot in the back, and she saw me seeing it and commented on it very sweetly, very understandingly. And I've always remembered that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I had Jill on the first time, I told her how much I was a fan of this movie. She told me she just knew that I was going to tell her that because she hears it all the time from people from my generation. I remember the movie the night that it premiered, and that was long before the internet, and there was only like 3 networks back then.
Right.
And I told Jill, I said, I love it when she stands up to Richard Mulligan in the department store, and she told me if only she could do that in real life with every person who talks down to her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can well imagine. Yes, she's not very, what's the right word?
Confrontational. Confrontational.
No. Yeah, confrontational. Much better word. That's exactly right. Richard Mulligan, likewise, really good guy. Liked him very much.
Yeah.
And to really bring it all back home, he then did that series with Park Overall for years.
Empty Nest.
Yeah.
It was a great show. Really funny show.
Yeah.
And then you did the notorious Vibes.
I did. That was, look, I love that movie. Mm-hmm. I have remained friends from that day till this with Ken Kwapis, who directed it.
Yeah.
Who's used me in a few of his other movies. Jeff Goldblum and I are friendly. We don't see each other, but whenever we do manage to bump into each other, he couldn't be nicer.
Yep.
And, that too was a movie that just got hammered so badly, and I felt so unfairly. And I thought, it got beat up badly because at the time, Columbia Pictures that made the movie was in the midst of a big transition. And they had just hired to run the studio a guy named David Putnam, who had done the movie Chariots of Fire. And he came in and said, I'm not going to get bossed around by CAA and William Morris and ICM. I'm going to make movies that I want the studio to make, and not because they're a good deal for sharp agents here in LA and blah, blah, blah. And it alienated a lot of people. And indeed, when that movie came out, I just felt like the powers that be all wanted to let that guy know. Oh, yeah, you're not going to play ball with us, and then you're going to make this movie? Well, you're in trouble, pal. Up yours, buddy.
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly what they did. I mean, they just lambasted that movie. It was a shame. Period. And I learned one of the real great metaphors that I've used for my life about acting from that movie. Because Peter Falk brought his golf clubs to Ecuador. We were 10,000 feet up in the Ecuadorian Andes, and he had brought his golf clubs. What the fuck is that all about?
Yeah.
I then, a couple of years later, I saw Peter. He was playing in the LA Open, big fancy golf tournament. They have a pro-am kind of day.
Yeah.
He was playing in that. And I had gone to see the tournament, and I saw him, and I was like, hey, Peter. And he, okay. And we reconnected. But and at that point, I had started to play golf. When I did Vibes, I had never played golf.
Yeah.
I had caddied golf as a kid. I was a caddy, but I had never played. And I realized that golf is indeed the perfect metaphor for acting. In a play, there's usually 2 acts. In golf, there's the front 9 and the back 9.
Yeah.
The acts are divided into individual holes. In plays, or I should say the front 9 and the back 9 are divided into 9 separate holes. In plays, they're divided into 9 separate scenes, if you will, any number of scenes, but they're divided up into little scenes, each one of which you have to have a goal and an intention In golf, you want to get the ball in the hole over there on the green. In acting, you want to make the point that the story needs to make.
Yeah.
How you get there is through what you say. And so in golf, how you get there is what club you choose to use. Where do you aim? How do you swing? How hard do you swing? Where do you put your hands? When you take the club back, do you take it back this far or that far? How much do you bend your knees? Which way are your toes pointed? All these minute little details that break down to each paragraph, line of dialogue, word in that line, each comma and nuance of a sentence. And I think that it's a great metaphor for what acting really is.
I agree.
You know, and I've used it ever since, and I owe that to Peter Falk and his love of golf.
That's pretty awesome. I remember when you were the security guard in Wayne's World 2.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, I got that job. One of my best friends, when I first moved to New York, I had grown up in Connecticut, just outside the city.
Right.
And I knew a girl in high school, and her dad and uncle owned a bar in New York. And I knew that to be an actor, I needed a bartending job.
Mm-hmm.
So that I could make some money while I was learning how to act and blah, blah, blah. And it took me a while, but finally, after about maybe 10 months, her dad called me in, and I got a job tending bar. And one of the first people I met there was the actor Whip Hubley. Do you know Whip?
Oh, yeah, that's Season Hubley's brother.
Yeah, Season's brother. He was in Rooskies. He was in Top Gun. He had a series when they did a remake of Flipper.
Yeah.
You know, he's been around for a long time. Very handsome guy, very dear, sweet, good man. And so, why did I start telling you about Whip? What was your question?
Oh, you were talking about how you got Wayne's World 2.
Yes, because Whip's wife, Dinah, was one of the producers of it. Thank you. That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Dinah used to work for Lorne Michaels on Saturday Night Live. And then when he got a production deal out here at Paramount, he moved her out here to be one of the producing, young producers at his production company at Paramount. And that was one of her movies, and she just gave me that part. And that was a heck of a lot of fun.
Yeah, I love that line. Hey, a lot of people's girlfriends are out there.
Yeah, exactly. That was a good line.
Which, by the way, Chris Farley recycles at the end.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And I very much enjoyed meeting Dana Carvey and Mike Myers. They were very nice guys.
Mm-hmm.
A bit distant. I didn't have much of a part there, but for the day. And we had one fun conversation. They asked, we all were talking about what our favorite movie was. And at that time, my favorite movie was Being There.
Oh, yeah.
Peter Sellers.
Love that movie.
Yeah, I do too. And I won both of them over when I chose that one. They were like, oh, yeah, good choice, dude.
Yeah.
They were mightily impressed. It was a worthy choice in their eyes. So I'm glad of that.
Yeah. Any good stories about the American president?
I'd say the thing that I would most talk about with that movie is I did that movie right after I got married,
Mm-hmm.
and it was right around the same time that Annette Bening either had gotten engaged or just gotten married to Warren Beatty.
Yeah.
She and I bonded a little bit over that of being newlyweds or soon to be married, and she was very sweet accordingly. And I had known a guy that had been her boyfriend.
Wow.
Prior to that. Another character actor, a guy named Ned Bellamy.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, I'd say that was the real story of that movie for me. That, and, you know, doing a scene with Michael Douglas and Martin Sheen. That was pretty cool. That was fun.
Yeah. And Aaron Sorkin wrote it.
Yeah. There was a great big table read of that movie the very first day. And the woman that cast that movie was throughout many, you know, most of my career. She's now retired. But she was my biggest champion as a casting person, a woman named Jane Jenkins.
Mm-hmm.
And she had a partner named Janet Hershenson. And Jane and Janet used to do all of Ron Howard's movies, all of Rob Reiner's movies, all of Francis Ford Coppola's movies. I mean, they were as big as it got as casting directors throughout the 80s and 90s. You know, and probably before that. I just don't know years well enough. But I know that they had done the casting for Coppola when he had his studio Zoetrope. I don't know what years those were, but they were probably in the 70s. You know, they were huge, and she was a huge fan of mine and so sweet to me. And, you know, thinking of that meeting right now, I remember her being there as well. And, you know, it was fun. Great big fun day.
Yeah. I also love Kingpin.
Well, the Farrelly brothers, when I started to play golf, some of the first people I ever played golf with were Pete and Bobby Farrelly. And, you know, I've known them since the mid-'80s. Mm-hmm. And we used to play golf together. And, you know, when they were doing Dumb and Dumber, I used to think there was Dumb and Dumber and Dumbest. And I was the dumbest because they kind of offered me a part in it. And I said, no, guys, I'm sorry. I'm going to do a play in New York, and so I can't do your little movie. Sorry, guys. Mm-hmm. And, oh, man, that was kind of dumb. That said, that play, right after that play, I came back to L.A. and auditioned for Apollo 13 and did that movie. So, mm-hmm. You know, nobody knows the future. And, you know, if I had to pick my real motto these days, it would be that everything works out.
Yeah.
Might not, you know, might not work out the way you want it to, but it works out.
Yeah.
That was one of those.
You did a couple movies with the Farrelly brothers.
I did Kingpin and Stuck on You. Although I think that's the one I got cut out of. And Me, Myself, and Irene.
It's a very funny movie, yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I think that might be it. Maybe I did another one. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love Pete and Bob, and I don't see them often. I saw Pete a couple of years ago at a birthday party for Willie Garson.
Yeah.
So that actor.
Yep.
And, you know, it was nice to see him again. He's a good guy. They're very sweet, good guys, both of them.
Yeah, I think political correctness has kind of boxed them in recent years, but I hope they come back, you know.
Well, Pete did a kind of series here, and that did quite well. With Vigo and Mahershala Ali. I didn't see it, but where the green book, the black book, the blue book about him Vigo driving him through the South.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
I kind of know what you're talking about, yeah.
He's an opera singer, a fancy classical pianist or something, and he's got a tour in the South, and they follow this guidebook of hotels where black people could stay at that time. And it was a really, very well received, and I think Mahershala Ali won the Oscar for it, didn't he? I think so.
I think so, yeah.
Maybe he won it Moonlighting. I can't Moonlighting, I can't remember. But anyway.
Yeah.
Those guys, they're not just funny, and they're not going to just get boxed in, as you said. They'll find a way around it because they're really smart.
Yes, they are.
Really smart, good guys.
Yeah, they're really good. So you're still out there working. Do you have any upcoming projects you want to plug?
Well, the one that I would plug two things. Thank you for asking.
Yeah.
And indeed, I'm driving to an audition right now. I got a voiceover audition that I'm driving to right now. Yes, I'm still at it. I am in the third season of Goliath, which is on Amazon. Stars Billy Bob Thornton and the wonderful Nina Ariadne, and in this season, Dennis Quaid and Bo Bridges and William Hurt and Amy Brenneman. And I don't know if you've ever seen that show, but every season essentially follows one court case. And for this, the third season, I played the judge. And it was a great part, best part I've had in 10 years. And what was particularly gratifying, there were so many gratifying parts about it, but the guy that is the showrunner, producer of that show, and who directs every episode, is a guy named Larry Trilling. And I met him. He directed an episode of Pushing Daisies that I did. And then he moved over and he kind of was the showrunner of Parenthood. And he gave me a job every year on Parenthood playing a different part. Now that's unheard of, man. That's like out of Mannix in 1970, where you'd see some character actor come back in a different part.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, Larry did that for me. And then with this show, Goliath, he called me up and said, well, actually what happened is I had called him up end of last year. I just was reaching out to people that I could reach out to about getting a job. And he said, well, I got something right now, but if you can wait a little while, I got a part in mind for you, but it doesn't shoot till next year, meaning this year. I said, sure, man. And the part was to play this judge, and it was just awesome. I've never been so well set up to succeed in my life. I was the only actor that they auditioned. The only reason they auditioned me is because he had to show my stuff to the powers that be at Amazon. The casting woman with whom he had worked for all these other jobs that I mentioned, I went in to do it with her, and she said, Googie, here's the news. You're the only actor we're seeing. and you're getting this part. We're going to do this audition now. And the audition was huge. It was 28 pages. I had to do every scene that I had throughout 3 different episodes. And she's like, Googy, you're getting the part. Don't worry about it. We're going to do this. Larry's going to look at it. And if he likes it, he'll send it on to Amazon, and it'll be done. If he doesn't like it, guess what? We'll do it again. So it was like all, it was just easy. And then I went to work, and this show shot 2 episodes together at a time. And so they were shooting episodes 5 and 6. And I'm in 5, and I do my scenes in 5 one day, and they went great. And then they were like, well, we have to finish these 2 episodes, so that'll be another week. And then there's a 2-week hiatus. So now I had 3 more weeks to feel comfortable about these other 2 episodes. So that was awesome. Then we went and did the other episodes, and my big day, they kind of got all squunched together, and in the middle of the day, they realized we're never going to get this all done. So my biggest scene, they said, we're going to do that next week. So at every turn, there was an opportunity for me to be more and more prepared. And I'm leaving out another great part of it. The awesomeness of Billy Bob Thornton.
Yeah.
Really and truly, even if he was lying, he made me feel so great because I had done Armageddon, and I had a scene in that movie.
Yep.
I played a mission control guy, and I had a scene in that movie where all of them are sitting around solving a problem. And I was telling Billy Bob, I don't know, I just want you to know, one thing I'm really good at as an actor is I'm a really good listener. So if you need someone to really talk to, I'll be there for you, man. And indeed, I was telling the truth. I think that is one of my strengths, but it was really self-serving because I knew that if he was looking at me, that when they turned the camera around, they'd have to look at me. And so I'd get a little more screen time. And so when I showed up to work on Goliath, Billy Bob was like, Googy, I'm so glad you got this job. I remember so well our time together on Armageddon, and I just thought when Larry told me you were going to do it, I thought, that's perfect casting, and blah, blah, blah. And he was just easily the nicest, most gracious guy. The working conditions on that show, where, especially when you're essentially a guest star, coming in to do just one or a few episodes, you're not part of the team, and it can feel a little bit awkward and intimidating depending on the cast. This one, they could not have been more gracious. This woman, Nina Ariadne, same thing. Easygoing, dear, sweet, smart, funny, gracious. So it was a great job. So I would tell all of your people that are listening to definitely watch Goliath on Amazon Prime. It is an awesome show, and I had a great time doing it. And then the last thing I would love to talk to you about is I did a movie that we haven't talked about, but it is the one movie where I am the star of the movie. I am the lead actor, and the story is, I always think of it this way. All the parts I get, I'm a point on somebody else's arc. I'm on their journey.
Right.
I'm a point on their journey. This movie, I'm the guy that's on the journey. and it's a movie called Ashley's Ashes. And I made it about, I don't know, 10 years ago, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And it's on Amazon Prime and iTunes, Apple, whatever they call that, iTunes, and those kind of places. And it's a very dear, sweet movie that I made. And one of the great joys of it was, the guys that made it, I helped them write it a little bit. And then I thought they were going to ask me to ask some famous person I knew to be the lead, but they didn't. They asked me to be the lead. And it was very, very gratifying. And then I asked all of my actor buddies to be in it. So I got Willie Garson to be in it. I got Craig Sheffer to be in it. I got Orson Bean to be in it.
Wow.
Who else did it? I brought in a guy named Andy Mulder.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, his scene got cut. I got my wife to be in it. She and I are in it together. We have a scene together. I got Ron Howard's brother, Clint, to be in it. So it's a lot of people that I know and love, and it was the most gratifying thing that they all said yes. Anybody I asked to be in it said yes. And it's, it was a great experience, and it's a really charming movie. And anybody that's ever seen it, I will get the occasional email or reach out from somebody on Facebook or whatever about the fact that, oh my God, I had no idea. I saw Ashley's Ashes, and I didn't know what a blah, 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 blah. I loved it. It was so great. It's such a beautiful story. And it is. It's very, very sweet and dear story. A lot of fun, a lot of good performances. And that I would definitely tell people to seek out.
I'll definitely check out both of those, especially Goliath. Oh my God, that sounds like it's a really good show. I've heard about it, but I haven't actually seen it yet.
By all means, check it out.
I sure will.
All right.
Well, Googie, I thank you so much for coming on today.
My pleasure. I'm sorry I was coughing so much.
It's okay. It happens a lot this time of year. But I'll be watching my 90-minute VHS version of Babes in Toyland this Christmas.
Well, good for you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Where can I hear this? Or is this wasn't live? You're going to release this as a podcast?
Yes, I'll be releasing it later today. And I can send it to you. I put it up on YouTube.
Great. Well, I look forward to it, and I'll put it up on Facebook and that kind of thing.
Awesome. Googie, you have yourself a great day.
Thank you so much, and Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And I hope you get some rest later, because that cough does sound pretty bad.
Oh, I hope so too, but no rest for the weary, as my wife says. But it'll be okay.
Okay.
Thanks again. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, sir. Have a great day. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, there you have it. Googy Gress. Ain't he a cool dude? Nice guy, great stories, very humble. There's not a whole lot of that in show business, but Googie obviously is well liked by his peers, and that is wonderful. If you like this video, everyone, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, add me as a friend on Facebook, join my Tommy Kovac comedian page on Facebook, follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and all that fun stuff. Well, that's all the time we have this week on Splat from the Past. Until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying, there's no shame in living in the past, because the present sucks. Later, dudes.